Why it is that our economic system has to grow or it gets sick struck me in 1990. I'd done 2 books on sustainability, and when somebody explained to me that the recession in 1990 was mostly just standing still, I was shocked. 1989 had been the greatest volume of goods and services ever produced in history up to that time. And 1990 was the same record volume, but because it wasn't bigger, we had hard times. Businesses went bankrupt, people lost their jobs, they lost their houses. Those hard times on the greatest volume of productivity that we'd ever experienced. So knowing that we need to stabilize our impacts, if not contract them considerably, I started studying economics and ecological economics, trying to understand why is it that the system has to grow. And there's a half a dozen different reasons that are explained in Life, Money, and Illusion. I'm just going to tell you about one, because we've got limited time here. But this one's easier to understand if I tell you a story first about 4 cowboys who've been out on the range all day, and they're hot and they're thirsty and they're tired, and they want to go to the bar and drink beer and play cards before they go home. So they go to the bar, they order their beer, and they ask the bartender if they can borrow a deck of cards. The bartender says, sure, I'll lend you a deck of cards, but I want collateral. You know, I want your holster, your saddle or something to make sure you'll give me back the cards at the end of the night. I'll give you each 13 cards, which is the deck divided by 4, and at the end of the night, I want you each to give me back 14 cards, 1 extra for interest. So you can picture the problem the cowboys are going to have, and you may wonder what it has to do with our economic system. The money that we buy and sell with is loaned into existence. It's created through credit. Coins and bills make up 2 or 3% of the money supply, and they're manufactured, spent into circulation so we can make change. But the vast majority of our money, 97 or 98%, is created when people take out loans. And the way it works is if you've got a business plan and you need $100,000, you go to the bank, you explain your plan, it's a good plan. The banker doesn't go to the vault to get you $100,000 of depositor's money. He simply writes a line of credit. It might have ink molecules in it. Most of them are just electrons on a hard drive. But you can start writing checks. For labor, for materials, for rent, whatever your business needs, you can write checks, and the people who receive them can deposit them or cash them, spend them on anything they want. And that money circulates until you pay back your loan. And as you pay back the loan, the money you pay back disappears again. The problem is the 14th card. In this case, the banker created $100,000 and wants you to pay back $110,000, or whatever that interest payment is. And he didn't create that $10,000. So unless somebody else takes out another loan to put more money into circulation that you can earn with your business to pay back your loan with the interest, there isn't enough money out there. But other people do take out loans, and for them to pay their loans, there has to be more loans the next year so they can pay the loans plus the interest. And those people, a bigger wave the next year, and every year more money has to be borrowed for businesses and houses and cars and so on than the year before. There's not enough money in circulation. So that's where the hard times come from, is you know, there's a shortage of money in that process, and some people default. Now we're in the process of hopefully recovering from an economic downturn, the likes of which we haven't seen since long before I was born. And it has its roots in this whole process. Back in the 2001, when the 9/11 incident took place, Americans were afraid, and they weren't spending. And after the buildings came down the next day, George Bush got on the television and he addressed the American people. He says, America is under attack. Get together with your families. Go to the mall and shop. And I'd heard it at the time, and it seemed strange. And last summer, Don and I were traveling in the States with this message, and people said, it's true. Our leader got on the television, told us, you know, we're under attack, go shopping. And the reason that that happened is that people weren't shopping. They weren't keeping that money in circulation. So there was a danger that people wouldn't be able to earn what they need to pay their loans and the interest, and they would have a recession on top of whatever else was going on. Not enough people went shopping. They lowered the interest rate to practically zero, hoping people would borrow money into circulation. They didn't. So they said, do you want a house? Anybody not got a house that wants a house? No, you don't have to have collateral. You don't even have to have a job. All you have to do is want a house and be willing to sign the forms. And every form that was signed put $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 into circulation, and the economy was saved. For a while. Until we ran into peak oil last summer. And it wasn't that we actually couldn't pump oil as fast as we wanted to burn it, but at the rate we were increasing, the speculators knew that we would be there, and that if they bought the oil for $140, it'd be worth more next week. So the prices of everything went up with the increased price of energy, and there was inflation, and they raised the interest rates, and that made some of these mortgages, or many of these mortgages, unpayable for people who could barely afford them in the first place. And a lot of houses flooded the market as they foreclosed, and the whole economic deck of cards came tumbling down. And we've been living a bubble economy for quite some time. The first one that I became aware of was a savings and loan fiasco back in the 70s, and it was followed by junk bonds and the dot-com bubble and the housing real estate expansion. All of these things were attempts to make it look like we can keep the volume of money in circulation, keep the economy expanding, when in fact we reached the planetary limits. Not only is there only so much oil and our activity is stretching that, not only is there so much capacity in the atmosphere to take up CO2 and we're stretching that, but there's only so much wealth on the planet to back up an expanding economic system, and we're stretching that. So clearly we're at this point where we now need to make things different. We need to rearrange things.